the sketch builds on itself. Here's another. Hi, in this next series of videos, I'd like to discuss a cabinet build. This is a cabinet on stand. I've already built one of these and I plan on building a similar one with slightly different specifications and possibly a third one afterwards. But before I even begin, I'd like to talk about the inspiration for these cabinets on stand. I'm a considerable follower of James Krenoff and his philosophy and his work, and his methods of work, I should say. And he's published, as far as I'm aware, 4 books, and I've got them all here, and I've probably read them from cover to cover multiple times. And every time I read them, I get something different out of it, and so it's quite interesting from a perspective of a furniture maker to understand how a master craftsman such as James Krenoff has developed techniques and methods on creating cabinets on stand. So I'll begin by mentioning that my display cabinets are inspired by the philosophy and work of James Krenoff. This inspiration comes from the cabinets on stand which have graced all of James Krenoff's books. Each of these books covers different aspects of his methodology and his philosophy and his work. And this is probably the first one he's ever published, The Fine Art of Cabinet Making. And he goes into great detail on how he selects wood and a few of his techniques, including how to make hand planes. Later on, he goes into further in-depth on actually creating cabinets and details of assembly and all the how to implement different elements that he's very familiar with and very renowned for. So through these James Krenoff's books, I realized an aspect of furniture making I had not yet explored. This is the slow, methodical approach to creating furniture. James Krenoff's philosophy emphasized wood selection as well as attention to detail. Krenoff's furniture could be interpreted as simple and straightforward, but this is where its beauty lies. Krenoff focused on wood selection, technique, and detail. He implemented his time-proven techniques in each piece of furniture he created. James Krenoff found a niche he was comfortable with, the cabinets on stand, which I just referred to. He spent the greater part of his life perfecting honest, timeless designs. The cabinets on stand are derived from mid-century designs he was familiar with from his native Scandinavia. So he improved upon these designs with the addition of subtle elements such as dovetail drawers, knife hinges, and hand-carved door pulls. Krenoff also focused on edge treatments. The edge treatment had to maintain the character of the wood and not take away from it. Krenoff used hand tools extensively and mastered this method of working. So influenced both by Krenoff as well as many weeks of study at a fine furniture making school, I soon realized the use of hand tools appealed to me. And shortly I'll begin to discuss the actual components of the cabinet. I have the larger components here. This is the top or the bottom. They're both similar in construction. This is a side panel. You can see the different faces. I'll get into this in much more detail later on, but the outside face is more of a ambrosia maple and the inside face is soft maple. And this is the actual one of the doors. So just the preliminary, I've begun working on the lip, the rabbited lip. And again, this is ambrosia maple on the outside. It's book matched in this case, and soft maple on the inside. And I make sure to sticker all my components. So I raise them to allow air to travel beneath and above all the different parts of the display cabinet before assembly, so to maintain equilibrium. So I avoid any issues with dimensional instability, which is kind of unlikely with these because these are, for the most part, they're all veneered panels, so it's very unlikely I would have that issue. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Thank you. So through the discovery of James Krenoff's work and understanding his philosophy of work and attending a fine furniture making school, I have since embraced the hand tool method of working in my own furniture making studio. Hand tools add a tactile dimension to woodworking and furniture making. Hand tools enable a furniture maker to slow down and better understand what they wish to accomplish with wood. Hand tool use lends itself well to a one-man furniture studio such as mine. This method of work minimizes dust and noise and is safer than power tools and machinery. Power tools and machinery can instead be used to prepare wood for use in furniture making in the preliminary stages. This is what I do. Krenov placed great emphasis on the wood itself. The woods used in his fine cabinets were carefully selected based on color and wood graphics. An example of wood graphics would be the grain orientation and the organic definition of lines and curl on surfaces of wood. And the color, you can't probably see it now because the finish hasn't been applied, but there are different color variations on this particular panel, which is why I've selected it for a door panel. Although James Krenov was not very prolific in his furniture making, the numerous cabinets he designed and created are revered today. The cabinets are excellent examples of how hand tool methods have an edge over today's fast-paced, machinery-intensive furniture making. A James Krenov tenet was to make the back of a cabinet of similar quality to other components of the furniture. So the back used frame and panel construction with hardwood panels. This step is skipped in modern furniture construction since the furniture back is not readily seen. The back of a cabinet is seen, however, when the doors are open. It doesn't take much more time to properly complete the back and enhance the beauty of a cabinet. Components for the back panel can be seen here. I'll show this in a second. These have been prepared and dimensioned to size. So this is the actual back frame and panel, back panel that corresponds to this this cabinet, and it's inset into a rabbet in the back. This is an example of how the assembly comes together once it's completed. So I actually create this all the components separately. This is the standard frame and panel. The only difference is I've selected book-matched panels, and I've divided them with a center style along with two outside styles. So once the doors are open on the cabinet, you actually there's more beauty within the cabinet as opposed to a piece of modern furniture, which is for the most part stapled furniture backs, and because it's assumed that the piece of furniture is going to be placed against the wall, but it's not necessarily so every time. The furniture can be placed away from the wall, so people have an opportunity to walk around the furniture piece or the cabinet on stand and view the back as well as the front of the cabinet. I'll put this aside for now. And what I'll do is I'll actually, in the next videos, I'll get into more detail on the actual construction. So as I was mentioning earlier, all the larger panels are veneered cores. You can actually see the core here. This is Baltic birch, and I'll actually explain how I do that, or I perform that process. And I'll also discuss how I attach the side panels to the top and bottom using dowels, which is exactly what James Krenov does, and there's a good reason for that type of joinery. And I'll also talk about this drilling guide that I custom make for each of my cabinets. So this has an end stop, which is used as a reference to align the dowel holes on both sides of one panel and corresponding on top and bottom panel, the top and the bottom panel. So everything aligns correctly. And just to ensure that the alignment is correct, I use two small screws to attach the drilling guide to each of the panel surfaces. And I'll discuss this in a little bit. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in a bit.